feel like every single one of these lives is going to start me doing that. It's like a little bit of hair out of place there. Aloha, I'm back. It's a warm day here on the Big Island of Hawaii. And I'm going to make sure I'm going to try to be a good boy and see if my audio monitoring is all right. Aloha. Aloha, aloha. Sounds good. It sounds good. Aloha, Jennifer, first person in the chat. Just started it. In case you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Andrew Crusoe, and I live on the Big Island of Hawaii, possibly the most beautiful, magical place in the solar system. I'm an independent author. How's my audio, by the way? Those of you who are watching, how's my? Am I too close? Am I close to the metal? Let's see. Input. Okay, I'm just checking my levels right now. Yeah, it looks like it's automatically adjusting. They do that. Some programs do that. Some programs don't. How do I sound? Okay, good. This is extremely expensive. It's actually not that bad. So I write tropical sci-fi. If you're just tuning in for the first time, because I have to be prepared, you know, as you do. People sharing this, God willing, and people going, "Who the heck is this? Who the heck is this guy?" So I write tropical sci-fi. This is one of them. This is the one we might look at today. This is the only fiction book with the famous Ahalanui warm ponds right on the edge of the Big Island. They were these volcanically heated warm ponds. They were amazing, woven right into the plot. So I write tropical sci-fi. That's one of them. And I also write true Hawaii adventure. Basically, it's an action memoir. The true story of what happened when I moved from Wisconsin in the middle of the continent to Lower Puna, which is Puna is the southeastern part of Hawaii, the Big Island of Hawaii, which as it stands is all the other islands could fit inside a big island, in case you didn't know. So I've got to tell you something now. I'm going to be totally honest. I'm a little bit superstitious. I'm not going to make the Office joke. I'm not going to be Steve Carell. It's tempting. I won't. I'm a little bit superstitious, I should say, about twos. The second time I do anything, I feel like, I don't know how it's going to go. And sometimes it's touch and go. And, you know, do you ever relate to this? The first time you do all this prep work, you get all ready, you get all excited. And you probably, you know, if you're like me, you do your homework. And then the second time you're and it goes well. And the second time you're like, well, I went pretty well. Probably don't have to do as much homework this time. You know, I know what I'm doing now. You know, did one, didn't die. But second time doing something, and this isn't my exact second time doing a live. This is more like my third or fourth. But this is the second time doing a Q&A. It's an Ask Me Anything. So any questions you have, just feel free to put them if you have questions about in the chat. Just if you have questions about how to get your work, I'll even answer some technical questions. I'm open to it. I'll make it fun. I want to make it different every time. I want to cultivate a sense of community, which is something that I was learning a heck of a lot about when I was writing this in 2015. Well, 14 mostly. Wait, no, all those years. And yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're going to do Q&A, and I'm gonna read / perform something from one of my books, whatever people want to hear. I don't know what the turnout's gonna be like this time. I don't know how, you know, people swing by when they swing by. We're probably gonna go for a little over an hour. We'll see how the feeling is today. It's quite a warm. I'm not gonna say hey dingus, because then all of your phones will go off at the same time. Alexa, turn off the lights. See, that's a bad prank. Some podcasts do that, and then people's lights go off and they have no control. So So I'm open to answering questions about how I got started on Kindle Direct Publishing, my process, how I go from. I've released roughly one book a year, little less than one book a year. So I've got 6 books out over the past 6.5 years, 7 years. My first book, The Truth Beyond the Sky, came out on 12/12/12. So that's fun. I couldn't resist that release date, right? This will be recorded because I'm a glutton for punishment. No, because I want people to be able to enjoy the interaction and the answers that come through. People have found these to be useful. And I'm not super famous by any means, but I enjoy a wonderful relationship with my readers, some of whom are here. And as a matter of fact, I should probably tweet out. Does anybody use Twitter anymore? I'm gonna my Facebook face out about this. We are live right now. See, I remember the days when Twitter was like really useful and really great. Alas, let's see. This is how the what do you say? This is how the mutton gets made. What is in mutton? Can anybody tell me what is in mutton? Because it doesn't sound great. I don't know if I've had the mutton. I don't know if I want the mutton. I think I'd like to, if there isn't a specific request, I think I'd like to read. That's okay. That was just a spray bottle. I think I'd like to read some of this today. It's I'm going to start working on an audiobook of this really soon, and I'm really excited about it. Let's see. It's a fast-paced sci-fi mystery that basically involves an island on another planet and weaves this interesting tropical story in with this big space opera, and it's a really fun mix of elements. I'm just going to share about this thing. This is extremely professional. Mutton is lamb. Read that. Okay. Aloha, Merrill. He's in now, and aloha, Jennifer, and all the people. Yeah, so I did not do a doodle for this one. A doodle is doodle.com is a cool web application that's free, and it lets people vote on when they want an event to be. So everybody votes, and then you kind of say, okay, this time box tends to work best for most people. The last time I did that, it was hilarious because I had like 10 votes and nobody, it was like completely across the board. So that's fun. That's what happens when you have fans in different countries and time zones. Doodle's really good at dealing with time zones. They should pay me for talking about them right now. But it was really funny. So I waited a bit longer and more people voted, and there was a bit more preference for around this time on Fridays. Also, there's a potential for doing it around this time on Saturday. Welcome, another person. Feel free, please introduce yourself in the chat, and we're doing an Ask Me Anything, and I'm also going to perform from this book or another book, whatever people want to hear me read. I also, if you like, I have and I don't know if you know how to use the chat, feel free to just say hi. We're all very nice here. I also may perform, if you haven't heard it yet, I wrote a short, pretty hilariously strange poem about the pandemic called Asymptomatic, but I've been calling it Schrodinger's virus lately. And I could read that, perform that if you guys would like to hear that. That one's a lot of fun. I actually wrote that for a Zoom group that I'm in, where it's a coronavirus support group, and there are people from all over the world who are on it. People in it's mostly based in England, but there's people in Australia and people in Bangkok and people in there's one person from Maui and there's me. And it's incredible though, because you hear all these really, like, for me as a nerd about language, you hear all these different ways of speaking, which can be really, really fun. You're like, oh, this person's accent's so cool, or the way that they're using grammar is really different. So it's been that's the silver lining to this, don't you think, is that we're being pushed to connect in ways that we haven't been pushed to connect before. I'm gonna try to get my map in the frame if I can. Let's see. I got this lovely Maui map right here, and I have a whole Big Island map right here as well. So Meryl, did you get a chance to look at the I'm curious how many people have seen the first broadcast that is available. It went for 2 hours. It was this inaugural extravaganza. I'd love to hear what people think, if people who have seen the first one, what they thought. And yeah, so do people have any questions about the process, or I can definitely talk about my thoughts for what's coming up. Yeah, well, let's answer that one first then. So, and I want this to be, I want this to be a conversation where, because you can all see what each other are saying in the chat, obviously, and in the replay as well. The chat is saved in most instances, and mine it is, I believe. So, yeah, what I'm working on coming up. So, what I'd love to do, and I'm going to try to. Let me grab a book and let's show you. Well, I've actually have a little announcement, something I just put up for pre-order for people who like box sets. I'm doing 2 ebook box sets. One of them already has come out. You may have seen that. I did all 3 of my nonfiction Hawaii series, which I don't have on me. Yeah, thanks. So one of the people watching right now got to see some of the first stream. A lot of fun. Went a little longer than I thought, but we were having so much fun. So one of the fun things about ebooks is you can collect them all into one huge compendium if you want. You can make one ebook that's really 3 books, and it's much more convenient to people. And a few weeks ago, I was talking to the Kobo people. If you're American, you probably don't know it. Aloha, another person. If you're America, if you are America, if you are literally a country, you may not know what Kobo is. That's okay. Kobo is the biggest ebook seller in Canada, not that far from us, and a huge seller in Europe. Kobo is awesome. They're a really great company. And I was talking with them on Zoom, and they said, people really like box sets. You should provide your books and give them a bit of a discount if they buy all 3 at once as one thing. So I've done that with 10,000 Hours in Paradise. That's up on all the stores, Amazon, Apple, Google Play, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, while it still exists. Sorry. And when you get it on there, you actually save some money. You save like 20% off if you were to buy all 3, and it's all there collected. And I had a lot of fun making that nice. So what I wanted to do for the tropical sci-fi, this is part 3, and this is part 2. And these both still average well over 4.5 out of 5-star average. They're really I don't know if, in case you haven't seen it, this is when they they go to the city that you have to leave your physical body to go to this city, and they've found a way to create objects out of thought energy. It's very, very fun. And what I want to do for this box set, and I'll talk about what's coming after this too, this is building up. So here's a map where they go across the galaxy. We start out on Avani, which is Zhan starts out as the main character. It ends up being about the ensemble. It ends up being about all of them. But and then she's from Outpost 33, which is this hollowed out moon. And they go to this planet. I'm not going to say who. Go to this planet called Vari, which is actually a Sanskrit word, which I won't reveal the meaning of. You'll have to look it up. But Vari is this very special world close to the core of the galaxy. It's one of the first. It's a wellspring of life. So it's one of the first planets in their galaxy that had life on it. So there's this deep, long history and a lot of mysteries that have yet to be uncovered about some of those core worlds, those well springs of life. So that's one of the things I want to, my angled here. That's one of the things I want to explore is what I'd like to do is create a sequel trilogy to, and I don't have the first one handy right here, but you've seen it before, I'm sure. It's the blue one. I want to create I want to create a sequel trilogy that's completely planned out and more sophisticated and deals with a bit heavier themes. So, because the thing about this trilogy is I didn't think I was going to write a sequel to The Truth Beyond the Sky, which I really should try to dig up. Where is it? It'll probably take me I actually have a big shipment I'm about to send out, and I collected all these books that I'm shipping out into one big box, and then I realized I don't have. It's true. It sounds like a humble brag, but it's actually true. I don't have it in here. I'm in a smoothie. It's very thick. Oh my goodness, it's cacao. And it literally just powers me through these internet-based adventures that we have together. So if you've read any of my tropical sci-fi, you know that there is a deep philosophy underneath them. And the secret that I usually tell people who get all three, because there's three, is that they represent truth, love, and power. The third one being power, that red, that sort of like root chakra. There's even lava. This is actually a photo I took on this island of a lava lake in 2013, the story of which is told in 10,000 Hours in Paradise. The first night I was ever on Big Island, and I'm sure many of you have heard this, but in case you haven't, I was couch surfing in Kona on the west side, and my host just basically left me with his mom, and his friend came over. He went to go hike in YPO Valley, which is a gorgeous valley, but his friend came over that night, and we struck up this conversation on the lanai, and in the middle of the conversation, she stops. She looks deep into my eyes, and she says, "Do you want to go on a volcano adventure?" Now, I had been on the island for less than 10 hours at that point, and I was already being invited on the coolest adventure I could imagine, right? You can't plan this stuff, So I was stunned. I was honored. I was of course, I grew up in the Midwest. I know everybody wants to go on a volcano adventure, and guess what? There's no lava flowing right now. That's what's crazy. Is when I should go grab the first 10,000 Hours in Paradise book. It's out there. I'll grab it in a second, but it's not flowing. At the time, it had been erupting. So there's 5 volcanoes that make up this island. Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, Kilauea, Hualalai, and Kohala. Kohala is the oldest one. And each zone, each volcano is obviously a different age, a different level of activity, and most of those are pretty dormant. Mauna Kea is basically dormant. Mauna Loa is not quite done, and Kohala has been dormant for 100,000 years. That's why all the land around Kohala at the north part of the island is Lava Zone 9. It's super safe. You can actually get insurance there. Yay. But this is a picture of one of the vents of the Kilauea volcano, which had been going off for 30 years straight when I took this photo. Now, volcanoes on Big Island are very different. They tend to be more gentle than other parts of the world, in my experience. They tend to move a bit slower, not always, but they tend the casualties in these volcanic events on this island actually been very low. We had a huge flow 2 years ago in 2018, which you probably saw on the news, destroyed over 700 permitted structures, which means it destroyed over 1,000 structures because people don't really believe in permits on some parts of the island. And it was very traumatic. And I believe we only had one person die, and I don't think they were even covered by lava. It wasn't even a Hollywood situation. I want to say it was connected to a heart attack and stress. But there's only one person from the data that I've seen. And it's possible that that's been revised, but definitely extremely low fatalities from these volcanic events because people do get a lot of warning. The lava does move very slowly. But what was funny about that 2018 event, which happened 5 years after I took this photo. This photo is Hale Ma'u Ma'u, what is it? The house of it's like the lava lake of the house of everlasting fire. Hale means house in Hawaiian, and Ma'u Ma'u, I think, means everlasting fire. It's a trip. And I took this photo. I never thought it would be on a cover of a book. You know, this book came out in 2016. Ever since this event, though, in 2018, as you probably or may or may not know, and thumbs up help, by the way, during the stream. If you want to hit that little thumbs up, it helps people know about the stream and helps the algorithm. Or later on, if you want to hit the bell. That's what they always say. Every time you watch a YouTube video, they're like, hit the bell, subscribe, and like, and heart me. Heart my bell. Put a bell in the heart, put a heart in the bell. And now it hasn't been erupting for just about 2 years straight. There hasn't been, not quite 2 years, less than 2 years. This is the most dormant time for the Kilauea volcano in the past 35 years. It erupted for 35 years straight, folks. Isn't that wild? And there were hundreds of earthquakes that precipitated this huge event in 2018, wherein those 700 permitted structures were destroyed, and something like 10% of the Puna district, which I'm going to grab that book. I'll be right back. There's a book I'm going to show you. It's going to be great. I think I'm going to do another doodle. That's the one thing that gets you on Big Island. We are in such a funny time zone here. Exactly. And that's why I brought this out. Thank you, Meryl. So this is actually my bestseller out of all my books. This is the first, get a little Roman numeral there. This is the first part of 10,000 Hours in Paradise. There are 3 parts. First part. There's the second part. And the third part I'm almost sold out of. And it's this very pretty fuchsia book. And it lends itself to 3 parts because I lived in 3 different places. All 3 of those places. The community that I lived in, which was an intentional community, very special place that was run by someone that had an anger management problem, unfortunately. The Vipassana center that I live right next to and did a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And a place I house sat at. Nice house. All under 50 feet of lava now. I can't go back. I don't want to spoil too much, but at the end of this, I left the island at the end of the 3rd book. Why did I leave, guys? You might know. I left because I fell in love with someone. And I realized that if I didn't give that relationship a chance, I would regret it. I would think about it for the rest of my life. I would think, what if, you know? And I don't regret that decision. It was a very good, long relationship. That's a long story. But that relationship was never, there came a point without revealing too much, because there's people's privacy involved that I should keep in mind. But there came a point where I realized that we wanted really different things, that we had literally grown in opposite directions. Thanks for the thumbs up. We like, it sounds clear we grew in opposite directions, but it really happens. What people decide who they're going to be every day. And sometimes the sum total of those small decisions creates a forking path where you thought that you were running parallel with someone. You thought that you could co-create, really, like not even like a hippie woo-woo way, but like an actual, I'm going to try something. Let's see if we can do less glare. How's that? Is that better? I feel like that's less glare on the glasses. You feel like you could co-create something together, but you notice that these two lines aren't really, they're never going to be perfectly parallel, right? But you notice that they're coming apart, and then you try, and maybe you move, and then you move, and you try to, I mean, what do we do? People renegotiate things all the time. That's not a bad thing. The challenge comes when you start to sacrifice what's really important to you. If you start to create an environment where you might resent this person, then that's poison. Then it's not very sustainable. So you can read into that. But exactly 2 years minus 2 weeks ago, I came back to this island after having been gone for about 3.5 years, something like that. And I was very excited to go back to the intentional community I talk about in here, which is, I read an excerpt of this last time, wherein I took mushrooms for the first time, and it was entertaining and really eye-opening. And I actually had a deal, and still have this deal, by the way, that when you buy the box set of this on any of the stores, you do save a couple bucks compared to if you bought the ebook separately. You actually get, as a bonus directly from me, if you buy the box set ebook collection, you actually get a very exclusive journal entry of me talking to my higher self, really, on this mind-altering substance that tunes you into a totally different level of reality. And a few people have taken me up on that, and it's been interesting to see very positive responses to that. Very few people have ever read that thing too. So so that it's one of the examples of some of the fun you can have when you are an author, that you can give these fun little bonuses to people that that, you know, anybody who gets a book of mine, even if it's a 90. Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, Jennifer was one of the people who took me up on that offer, and she says exclusive journal entry is awesome. Yeah, don't spoil too much. Don't spoil too much what's in there. But we had a question about, and I'm thinking about doing these. Guys, what do you think? I'm thinking about doing these potentially every other Friday. I think that's something that I can sustain. Something that, a path of growth that I think I would enjoy, and a good way, at least until we have markets on this island again, which was my primary way to have this kind of interaction with my readers. We don't have that. We're in a 14-day quarantine right now. Let's just take a breath. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be happy. You know, it's funny. Often, this has happened twice now. often I almost feel like I want people to start with the second book in my trilogy because the book where I did the Vipassana retreat, was probably the smartest thing that I did the first time I lived here. I was here for a little under 2 years the first time I was here. And we used to meditate on that. And we would do Anapana, and we would do Vipassana, and we would do Metta. Metta is the loving kindness meditation where you're just sending love out to the whole world. You're starting with, you're picturing your family, and you're picturing your friends, and you picture your country, and you just go out in these ever larger concentric circles. Get the angle right here. And can you tell I believe in the rule of thirds? And you expand this circle out and you send out love to the world. And we know from such things as the Maharishi Effect. If you haven't Googled the Maharishi Effect, I highly recommend that you do. It is a scientific study that I don't think is BS because it's been replicated a couple times, wherein when you have thousands of people meditating together, holding a similar intention, peace or awareness, that the crime rate drops statistically significant, where you have something like a square root of the amount of people in an area. If they're meditating, the crime rate drops something like 40%. It's in the double digits. I want to say it's between 20 and 50%. It's very measurable. And I believe that happens because I call it the thought sphere. We're all swimming in these thoughts all the time. You know, our brains are not just brains. I really believe they work more like radios. They're transmitters and receivers. And when we transmit this intention of peace and harmony, it's almost like pheromones, totally different mechanism, but it metaphorically, it's like that, where people are picking up these signals and they might not even be conscious of why they feel better. They just go, oh, I'm feeling a bit better. I'm feeling a little less angry, or I'm feeling a little more passionate, or a little more patient, perhaps. And maybe, like I said, I don't know exactly how it works, but there have been studies, significant studies on this that I think are just absolutely fascinating. So anyway, I released a box set of the nonfiction, and I did, I think I did like a 20% off the first week that was out. Whoa! And now I want to announce that I'm doing a box set, and the first one's around here somewhere. I'm doing a box set of the Sci-Fi. And welcome watcher. I'm Andrew. I write Hawaii-inspired sci-fi and nonfiction action memoir. You probably are already aware of me if you're here. Aloha, Mr. David Lee. Oh, should I tell people what you invented? I kind of want to like. Thank you for stopping by. David Lee is he's doing everything he can to change the world and make the world a better place. He's been involved in some really wonderful. I don't want to derail everything too much and get distracted too much, because I still have a pending question I need to answer. But David Lee is a founder of a company you might have heard of called Field Roast that makes really excellent vegan options. Some people call them like a meat substitute. I would call them like, I sound like someone from California. I'm saying like too much. I would call them the evolution of protein products. You know, it's like people trying other alternatives to get their protein instead of killing animals and all these. There's a lot of, for those of you who haven't looked into it, there's a lot of problems with animal agriculture. Right, vegetarian grain meat. It's good to see you, David. I hope you're doing well over there. David is, I believe, still back in the Seattle area, which I hope is calming down a bit. They've been pretty, for those of you watching this in 2021, Seattle's had a really interesting time the last months with this pandemic, and they've done from what I've read, they've done a pretty good job at mitigating the impact of that. And we have another person. Maybe I should start these a bit later. Welcome. So I have I had a question about, and this is a Q&A, so you're absolutely welcome to ask me anything. You can ask me about my process. You can ask me how I go from having an idea. Usually, honestly, it's 5 ideas, and then, how I go from that to holding one of these in my hand, or this is a real, I love holding this one because you can really like do some damage with this one. Holding one of these in my hand, or I designed this cover myself. I'm pretty proud of that one. I'm open to all kinds of questions, how I market it, and if you have a book idea, or if you've perhaps written a book and want some thoughts on a way to proceed, I am available to, kind of share my experience with this. I've been doing this for a while. I've got 6 books out. I've been really lucky to build a lovely fan base and have great interactions with my readers. That's one of the things I love the most. Being able to go to places and sign, put your John Hancock on something that I work. Each of these is like a multi-year project. To be able to do that is I have so much gratitude. I'm so thankful. It really feels like coming full circle, So it's a Q&A. I'm also going to read, I'll read one from any of these. I haven't really practiced any. I got 4 of the 6 that I have out. I could try and dig around and find the first tropical sci-fi one. That's the very first book I ever released, but I kind of want to read a bit from this one because I haven't read from this before. So this one, this is The Island on the Edge of Forever. It's the only tropical sci-fi book it's the only fiction book that I'm aware of. Pretty sure it's the only fiction book that has real places on the Big Island woven into it. I'm saying that right now just in case you just tuned in. I believe I said that earlier. And I wrote it such that you could start here, even though technically it's the second in the trilogy. It's a quirky, interesting, it's history. It's sort of genre defying because technically it's sci-fi, but it's not hard sci-fi. There's elements of it that you might consider. It almost feels more like speculative fiction to me these days. With it's tropical and there's a mystery and there's caves and lava and sentient jellyfish. It's crazy. I'll have to think about what part I'm going to read. But I wanted to answer. I believe Meryl had a question that we're going to swing back around to. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. If I need clarification, I'll ask for clarification. But this is about what I want to do. What I want is to create more community around my work. I've been very blown away by the responses to my work, especially this one. Probably because I sold more of these than I think any other one so far. People love Hawaii. And this is all true. So true, I had to give everyone pseudonyms, except for beloved Harry Jim, Lomi Lomi, Massage, Kahuna, who kahunas. That's how he calls himself. Apparently, kahuna is a verb. Who knew? He's in here because even if I changed his name, you would have been able to figure out who he is. He's just like just stands out. And but everybody else has pseudonyms. And I read from this last time. I read the part about the first time I ever did psychedelic mushrooms, which was very entertaining. But the question, I want to get back to the question that Meryl asked, which was, what am I working on now? What's in the future? And what I'm feeling passionate about right now is I want to take everything that I've learned and I want to create a synthesis of and it's still in the early phases. The ideas are still percolating. But I'd love to, short version, I'd love to return to the island of forever. So Asha is my favorite character I've ever invented. Zhan goes on his own journey in this. They have separate missions, and their missions end up colliding in this very entertaining way. And at the end of this book, I don't want to spoil this book for you, but at the end of this book, there's a big shift that happens, and they leave this. I say they, I mean she. My brain. She leaves this planet, and it's sort of open-ended what's happening there. And to me, this world, which, as I said earlier, is one of the, what do we got? Just 5 well springs of life in this galaxy, which I can show you the map. And the well springs of life are where life started in this galaxy, right? Although the map in the red book's a lot more interesting. And so this world's, a couple billion years old, and what do we got? Oh, and then we got to VC, which is where Asha was born, actually. That's not a spoiler. It's pretty obvious when you start. We got some early art of Navika, which is this guy. He's a living crystal, 3-sided pyramid. Got some sacred geometry in there, which is really fun. And Navika is actually a consciousness of someone. And this is another thing I want to explore, potentially in the next book. Now, and I'm never, okay, here's your exclusive reveal for part of this. And this will be extra meaningful to those of you who have read one of the sci-fi titles. Navika is actually, his consciousness was transferred out of somebody who was dying. And this person was so and lent themselves to this kind of work that they were able to transfer this person's consciousness into one of these huge crystals. That's a little bit of Navika's backstory. Navika is very interesting, and I've always wanted to find a way to talk about him, because he's in the metaphor of these characters. The 4 main characters are parts of the self. So just really briefly, heart, mind, body, and spirit are what they symbolize. So that becomes extra interesting when you're reading them as well. So Navika is sort of like, he's the starship, but he's alive as well. So when you're viewed as a vehicle, you don't necessarily get as much. I think that's one of the things that Navika, he doesn't resent, but he's sort of like is relegated himself to being like, well, I've decided to take on this role as this starship, and I'm going to do my best. And that's one of the fun things about part 2 of the trilogy is Navika meets another living starship called Leela. Leela means play in Sanskrit. And she's very similar, a bit more advanced, more advanced reconnaissance ship. Navika's more of a scout, and Leela's more of like a spy ship. And they have some interesting interactions. But before I forget, I want to say, so like I said, I'm doing a box set of all 3 of these, and that is coming out. And again, if you have any questions about my process or what's coming out, if you have a request, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear if there's anything that jumped out to you about my work. And I am open to constructive criticism as well. I'm always trying to improve and trying to grow to quote my internet friend, I'm trying to grow as a person. But I'm doing something kind of fun I'm always trying to do something fun. Should I turn on the light? Should I turn on I think I might turn on my full spectrum bulb, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing that's fun. I got a big old full spectrum bulb. There we go. There we go. That's a bit better. What do you think about that? A little more of my smoothie. Very powerful smoothie. So is that better? I feel like that's better. So we have a comment. Thank you, Meryl, for your comment. He says, we are multidimensional beings, and group meditation or spiritual joy and sorrow can actually be measured in changes in the magnetic grid of the planet. Yes. And do you think that that's the physical ramification of the Maharishi effect? I have heard that. I need to do more research into that. It wouldn't be surprising to me. I've seen some sources that say that each, as a matter of fact, the brother of one of the fringe authors that I follow had this crazy lab thing in his house. He was always working on radios and just random equipment, repairing these old TVs and radios, and they would see like rainbows and strange things on the walls, like little sprites and such. And it creeped her out that her brother was doing these things because she would feel energetically in the room. And she believed, I think this was the way she summarized it, was that emotions actually left, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was true, emotions actually left an energetic imprint on a space. I don't know what mechanism that is. I think it's the challenge is we don't really have a science of something until we can measure it. The way that our scientific method works requires a way to measure these things, and we haven't found a reliable way or an agreed upon way to, people try to go out with those rods and try to find ghosts, and so far that doesn't seem to be very that reliable, because if it was, like if we could actually like reproduce that crap, we would have a science of it. Like there would be more established methodology on how to detect those things, but we don't have that quite yet. And my dream is that we will be able to have a science of, it sounds almost hokey to say a science of spirituality, but if we can start to measure some of these events, then we can actually have a science. Because science doesn't care what you believe. As a methodology, as a framework, something I really respect usually is that scientists love proving each other wrong. They live for poking holes in other people's arguments. And that culture is good. That culture creates, it's seeking to create objective beliefs that hold up under scrutiny. And then we're able to go, okay, well, this is the model we're working with. It holds up pretty well. We've tested it, and we can kind of run with it. And 99.99% of the time, it's going to do what we think it's going to do. We 99.99% of the time, you're pretty sure that the airplane is going to go into the air. We understand air pressure. We understand high pressure and low pressure over a wing. Luckily, the laws of physics are not perceptibly changing every day. That would be very challenging. So I do wonder, though, if emotions imprint onto objects, kind of like what Meryl's saying here. If an emotion is actually almost like the who was that doctor who did all the snowflake experiments, which maybe he's been debunked now. There's some argument about that, but holding an emotion and then forming snowflakes as you're holding that emotion in the lab. There's some interesting, perhaps only anecdotal now, evidence to show that maybe emotions have a magnetic field. When you have an emotion, I would not be surprised. I'm saying do your own research on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a specific magnetic signature for each emotion or a variance on that. But anyway, I'll go ahead and read one of these books in a minute. I did want to say before I forget, Once again, thank you for coming. I did want to say that, oh, there's the bird that was chirping that I mentioned in my newsletter. Does anybody know that one? It just goes peep, peep, peep. I'm trying to learn more birds. Help me out, guys. I don't think it's a cardinal. Not sure. I did want to say, before I forget, that I'm doing something fun with the box set of these three. Not only am I discounting it, it's $777 for all three, the ebook for all three. It's a pretty good deal. At the end of the box set, which is, you know, just one big old, it would be like 900 pages if it was a paperback, over 900. At the end of that, I'm including 4 illustrations, most of which have never been seen before, of the main characters. They're early concept art of the main characters. So if you ever feel, if that's something that interests you, that has just gone up for pre-order. Aloha! Another person came in. We are talking about tropical sci-fi and nonfiction adventure. This is a Q&A. My name's Andrew. You're here, probably here because you already know me. Thank you for stopping by. And if you have any questions on the process or what's happening, feel free to ask in the comments. So that's a bonus if you ever get the box set, is you do get extra art that you don't get to see. So I did want to make sure I mentioned that. It's really funny, especially to see Unok's early concept art. His face is kind of different, and I put him in higher resolution. And I've also remastered, I don't know if you've noticed or if any of you have Kindles. I think Amazon's the only one who will do an over-the-air update right now. I could be wrong about that. I've remastered all 6. I think we're done with all 6 now. Yeah, just me. I've remastered the formatting on all the ebooks now. I know most of you have probably picked up the paperbacks from me, which I so appreciate. I put a hell of a lot of work into these paperbacks as well. But for those of you who have the ebooks, I've remastered them, and the typography and the graphics and just the overall is so improved. I'm very excited about it. Like I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but before the map, because you've probably seen this map, the map wasn't even a full page map before. It was very close. It was like 90% of the Kindle page was being taken up by the map. And now it is a true full page. So I'm just kind of tweaking this and upgrading as much as possible online to grow the online side of it, because a goal of mine is to transition this business online as much as possible, because I think I can reach a lot more people that way. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing these YouTube lives more as well. I should probably encourage people to share the link to these lives when I do them. What do you think? So if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I would love to read something. I'd love to read something from one of these here books. I'm kind of feeling this one. This is the one I'm going to be doing an audiobook of. This is the other project that I'm very excited about. As I've had many people say that they loved the audiobook of the first book, and they would love to be able to enjoy my books on audio. And that's something that I'm really setting my sights on for this summer. I'll be using this fancy doodad right here, and pretty excited about it. But and I actually thought, you want to hear something funny? I actually thought, no, wait a minute. I'm doing this live stream. Maybe I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Maybe I could record right into Logic, do the audiobook to this while I'm live streaming. And then I realized that I didn't want to do that. It didn't quite feel aligned because I would have to repeat myself. And for this live stream for you, I kind of want to perform it differently than I would in an audiobook. You know, when if I just perform this and I'm just thinking about the people on the stream right now, I can be a little more playful and a little more goofy in a way that, and maybe just a little more animated. And it doesn't have to be perfect either. You know, in an audiobook, I would have to make sure my diction was really good. And if I had any flubs or mispronounced anything, I'd have to redo it. And that's not really necessarily the case when you're just having fun here on the live. So I decided to make those separate, but I thought about it. So let's see, what's a good, first of all, show of hands or in the chat, have any of you looked at this one before, or have picked up, or have done, maybe even just done a look inside? Have any of you looked at this one, or have, I know Meryl has bought this one and left a lovely review. But about any of you, I guess I'm curious how many of you are into the fiction and how many of you are into the nonfiction. So, okay. And what's really fun about these two is, and I should say this before I forget, is that these are two totally different genres, right? But the secret fun bit about these is that they are, someone's using the blender in the other room. That's fun. Hopefully that's not too loud. These are sister books. So so this is the true story of what happened when I moved from Wisconsin to Hawaii, right? And I came here and I went to this community and I was work trading as a web designer, and I started writing this book during these events. So if you read one of these, you appreciate the other one more. You don't have to read one before the other, but they, I know, right? Jennifer says she's waiting for audiobooks for versions 2 and 3. I'm going to have a lot of fun. That's now that I have the box set for this done. I just finished the box set for this today, put it up for pre-order. I think I'm going to be charging $9.99 for the box set, but right now on the pre-order phase, it's $7.77. Thanks, Meryl. He says that both fiction and nonfiction are delightful. I appreciate that. But if you want the if you want to support, you do get, if you do get the box set, you do get the early concept art. It's at the very end of the whole thing, and you see early concept art of each of these. Well, all 4 of these guys. So what part? Oh, and you know what? Oh, hold on. Before I read that, there's one thing I want to say. I didn't fully answer Meryl's question, is what am I thinking about moving forward? What I'd like to do moving forward, I actually, let me see, a little note here. I have a note here called New Book Ideas, which is rapidly filling up. But I just want to briefly give it a little teaser. One of the phrases that, because I'll take down a phrase that hits me in my daily life, and I will go, this is the energy that I want to express. One of the phrases that I took down, I don't even know where this is from. If you know where this is from, thank you, because I did not write down where it's from. Oh, terrible. The way of an enlightened man is like a track of a bird in the sky. The more that I live with these characters, the more I feel out what their futures are. Because this trilogy really, it covered all the events in this trilogy happen over about a period of 1 month. There's not that much time. And Meryl asked me where we're going from here. And like I said, you can start with this book too, and I'm about to read a bit from this. But what I'd like to do is take a step back and have perhaps 5 years pass after this book. And you know, I'm trying to share something without spoiling everything, but you know, Zhan wants Asha to stay on his world. He lives in this island chain of these radiant blue forests. By the way, my forests were blue before James Cameron's people were blue. I was outlining this in 2010. An Avatar came out. Actually, no. I was outlining in 2009, and I knew they were going to be blue. And then Avatar came out in December of 2009. But what's really been striking me, and I feel like this is in the energy right now. This is in the air. This is like the zeitgeist of the collective. It's something in the collective unconsciousness right now, is the idea of what is temporary and what is eternal. You know, and something that I've seen a lot is, and I'm sure some of this is due to where I live. I live in a place that can be very transient. Many people come to this island and they cannot sustain staying here. Maybe I'm just stubborn. But I really want to explore that. I really want to explore that idea of transience and temporariness. For those of you who have read this book and the sequel, and the lessons that I learned doing the meditation retreat, that idea of anicca, which is the Pali or Sanskrit word for temporariness, basically. Impermanence. Nitya is permanence. You put an A in front of it and it means the opposite. So I want to explore that specifically in terms of interpersonal relationships. That's something that's really been fascinating to me, is seeing these waves, you know, and I don't know about you. I mean, I don't want to make this too timely, but you know, divorce rates in China went up in the last few months, be connected to this pandemic. I really want to explore that idea of, we all want this sort of, well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us want this, a sense of stability, someone who will have our back, someone who will understand us. And one of the questions that I've been posing to reality and life lately is, how do you reconcile that desire for stability, which I think we all have some of that? How do you reconcile that with growth, people's desire to grow and change, and that growth inevitably will lead people apart? Seems to me. Not always, but I would say the majority of the time. And how do you create and cultivate connections with people that you can grow with, whether those are whatever form that takes, right? I mean, most people's minds will go to, like, you know, romance, which is an obvious one, but also close friendships and family. How do you stay close with family? You know, the Greeks had what, five different words for different kinds of love. You know, they had eros, romantic love, agape, unconditional love, which is something that I think few of us really can hold for an extended period. It's challenging because we're trained to be conditional with our love. You know, how can I love you if you do this, or you go here, or you don't talk to me for 2 weeks? It's so funny. Regardless of age, I've noticed people that I've considered really mature really lose it sometimes when people don't show up the way they expect them to. And that's something that I've been exploring and learning to cultivate patience and equanimity around. So I'd like to explore those themes with the backdrop of I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say a new foe, a new enemy in the Arvinda galaxy that is much more tricky and maybe insidious and less obvious than the gravity bending nasties in this first trilogy. That's something that I want, and it feels really good to explore that, because I had the idea for these folks when I was outlining books 2 and 3. I really planned out more, and I wanted to give it time to breathe. So I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, I just really want to explore some of those themes around impermanence. What is eternal? What is temporary? And also the idea of legacy and life path. I want to explore that with all of the characters. And what I'd like to do, and I don't want to rush this, is what I'd like to do is really sit down and get a lot of clarity over the arc of this new trilogy. I want to outline 3 books. I want these things to like moments snap together like magnets. And that's it is kind of like a huge commitment, but I think the result could be incredible. I'm going to lean into it though. I don't know if I'm going to know the way this trilogy ends going in. I kind of want to like lean into it softly and feel out what this new saga wants to be, because ultimately I want to have 7 books in this series, and I don't want people to have read I can't even talk today, anything else, right? To have had to have read anything else. I want people to be able to start with this new book, which will hopefully come out in 2021. And then if they want, they can go back and read Epic of Aravinda trilogy and kind of get a backstory on these people. But that's the way I'm looking at it, as these 3 books form like a foundation for their friendship and where they're coming from. Although there is tons of backstory that I haven't really explored, like Navika, like, what happened to Unak before he crashed on Avani. What's the deal with Laurel, and what's the deal with Zhan's brother? I don't know how many of you picked up on that. Like, there's in the first book, Zhan's brother, they talk about how Zhan's brother vanished, and we haven't really had time to explore that, and what's going on with Kavi. There's a bunch of, and I've been rereading all these too, looking for little clues and looking for things that I can connect and click together. And that's another, so I'm going to read this now, but that's another fun part about doing the audiobook for this, is I'm in the process of reading it again. I'm going to have, a new perspective on it. When you go through and read a whole thing out loud, you're going to get a clearer perspective on it and really sink into the texture and the pacing of the story. I really obsessed about this book. Has probably went through more changes during the revision than almost any other book. Character genders were changed, character names were changed. It was really refactored in a lot of ways. What was I going to say? Oh, I do want to mention before I forget, and I'll probably put the link in the description. What year is it? On Monday, I released an interview on my interview podcast that I think you would enjoy. That's about creativity and healthy relationships. It's so fun. It's I interviewed John Roderick, who is kind of a amazing podcaster, indie rocker from Seattle. And we had an amazing almost hour and a half talk. He was a wonderful guest, and that just came out in this month. And then before that, a few months before, I interviewed Jamie Caddo, who is the co-creator of this really amazing band called One Giant Leap, who it's this world music collective thing, and they traveled to 50 different countries and recorded all these tribes. And if any of you have listened to those, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But if you haven't, I put a lot of work. I try to get an interview out once a month. I've got a lot of projects going on right now, but oh no. It's saying that my connection is unstable. Okay. Can you see me now? It said my connection was unstable, but I didn't do anything. And I've got a strong uplink. Okay, thank you. Well, we'll start to wrap up because I try to keep this in one video. And if I stop and start, then it's going to be multiple ones. And it's the whole thing. So what source energy wants me to read you? What part is a good... I may just read the first chapter of this because it goes from... Have I read the first chapter of this to you guys yet? I don't think I have. Don't get a concussion. It messes with your memory. No, I mean, not today. I mean, like, I feel like I read the first chapter of this like a week and a half ago, but I don't think... I think I may read the first chapter. Then you will get, it'll be a good kind of crash course into the book. I may skip the prologue because it's something that most people just skim anyway. The prologue kind of gives you a bit of backstory, but in terms of just performing this, I think it's probably better to read the first chapter. And then maybe next time I'll read chapter 2. But I do feel that this book is paced a bit better than, I don't know, than The Truth Beyond the Sky, which is kind of a prequel to this. And I also am just kind of a sucker for this book because Asha is the main character of this book, and she's my favorite character I've ever created. So we start with some beautiful small caps. Just picking it up. Asha felt a chill sweep through her body. Okay, I'm gonna get some cacao and then we're gonna go. Protein shake. You know what I should have asked too? Or I didn't even consider this. See, you must realize these are my small beginnings. Right now, I may have a map that is not sticky to the wall at the bottom because I need to get more tack. But someday that'll be a framed map. And someday this will be in a boom thing. And very soon I'll have a much nicer desk. So all good things come to those who wait and have positive intention. Precious bodily fluids. Thank you guys so much for staying on. The majority of you have been here the whole time. I'm still open for questions. But this 80% of this book was written in the jungle of Hawaii. And maybe next time when I do this, should I lead with the reading? I'm up for constructive criticism on this. Trying to get a better way to do. And this is very different than what I was doing a few months ago. Okay. Everybody hear me? Got a piece of paper. I'm reading from a dead tree. I could read from the screen, but I'm going to read from the dead tree. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the mic. It's a very sophisticated technique. It's called putting the mic on some books for extra comfort. Extra comfort. There we go. Boom. Audio quality is important to me. Mm-hmm. I feel like I had better geometry last time I did this. Okay, let's see. Here we go. All right. I trust you can hear me okay. Authenticity is the new currency, right? That's what Gary Vee taught me. That guy. How many milligrams of caffeine is Gary Vaynerchuk on every day? I think it's more than 1,000. If you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, that guy, he is a trip. That guy's a trip and a half. But he's gonna buy the sports ball team, maybe. All right, chapter 1. Actually, I'm gonna fold my legs. I'm gonna get real comfortable. All right. I want to be comfortable, but I also want to sound good. Asha felt a chill sweep through her body. She was a young girl, sitting amidst a glimmering landscape of technology. All around her were flickering lights and rows of equipment scattered across the large, swooping workspaces that filled the room. And above her was a large glass dome that revealed a once clear sky, now thick with ominous clouds. Asha winced. Her father hadn't mentioned a storm. She looked back down to the small metallic sphere on her lap and twisted part of it. Dozens of points on its surface flared to life as it left her hands and floated up into the air. Sound good so far? She watched the sphere fly around in careful circles. Do you think I have time to fix one more, Dad? Her father walked over and put his hand on her shoulder. In the reflection of one of the machines, Asha noticed that most of the pockets on his graphite jumpsuit were strangely empty. Times really had changed. Absolutely, Asha, he said. We're not due at the docks until evening, so we have time to eat, pack, and settle into our quarters. Don't you remember? Right. Asha leapt up and walked over to a large bin filled with dozens more of the metallic spheres. Just look at all this, Yantrick said, wandering over to another table covered in a bizarre assortment of wires, half-built contraptions, and tiny metallic parts. It's too bad there wasn't more room for the entire inventory. But Dad, didn't you say we wouldn't need this old stuff? Asha walked over and sat down at the workspace, running a blue beam of light over the sphere. I thought you said we'd be able to bring everything we truly need. Don't worry, Asha. We are. I guess your old dad has trouble letting go sometimes. Asha watched her father pick up 3 small dice with 12 sides each and roll them onto the table. Incidentally, this is a game I want to explore at some point in another book. Her dad's history is interesting. The dice clattered onto the metal surface, all coming up as single dots, the lowest score. Yantrick laughed. I guess it's a good thing I gave these up. Still can't roll to save my life. How's that pod coming along? Asha turned back to the sphere she was holding, made a final twist, and snapped it back together again. There you are, she said. All fixed. You're all healed. Yantrick walked back over to his daughter, brushing some of his long black hair behind his ears. Just fixed, Asha. People we heal. Machines we fix, okay? They watched as the sphere rose into the air and began scanning the room with a sharp magenta beam. For those of you who have read The Truth Beyond the Sky, you might recognize this device. It's one of their probes that scans Navika the first time that Zhan, right before Zhan meets her for the first time. Asha turned to him and studied his face. Do you ever think I could heal someday? I know there aren't many healers left, But what if I found someone, to teach me? Yantrick sat down onto a chair next to her, his dark brown eyes full of compassion. You can be whatever you desire, Ashakirta, as long as you find the right teacher. Thanks. She trailed off in thought. Except, what if I'm not good at it? What if I have no talent? Yantrick put his hand on her shoulder. Asha, none of us start out with great skill. Time will bring that. It's the intention that matters. Remember that. Thunder rumbled above them, and Yantrick scanned the darkening sky above the dome. Something's wrong. Climate control forecasted clear skies. Just before Asha could reply, the comm around her father's wrist whistled. He glanced down to it and darted over to one of the windows that overlooked the city. Impossible, he whispered. There's no way they could have gotten here this fast. Even with... Asha jumped up from her seat and ran over to the window. But just before she could reach it, her father turned around and scooped her up. What is it, Dad? Why don't you want me to see? Yantrick was reading something on the comm around his wrist, but he tilted it away from her view. I'm sorry, little one, he said. We have to leave. Now. A flicker of despair flashed behind his eyes. Still holding Asha with one arm, he grabbed a thin crimson case with his other hand. With his knuckles, he pressed some of the glowing buttons on the panel beside the door and ran out, daughter in one hand, case in the other. Asha held on tightly as her father ran down a twisting stone ramp that led to the lower levels of the tower. Soon, the light of day had left the tunnel, and only the red overhead lights remained, like tiny, always watching eyes along the ceiling. Asha shut her eyes and buried her face into her father's shoulder. Even though she was mature for a 7-year-old, all of this felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. She heard a hissing sound and a clunk. The air felt cooler now. A part of her wanted to know where she was, but another part wanted to stay in her father's safe embrace. She didn't want to think about what was coming. They had talked about it for months now, and some of her friends even seemed excited to settle on a new planet. But the full ramifications of the plan were still unthinkable to her. She felt herself accelerate and was tempted to open her eyes again, but decided against it. After a few moments, the wind kicked up and blew her long brown hair all around her. Her father was running again. She heard the sound of an airlock, or was it an elevator? She felt a rising sensation in the pit of her stomach, breathing deeply to try and calm herself. Look, her father whispered. We're aboard. Gradually, Asha opened her eyes, and an expansive room flooded her vision. They were moving upward in a transparent elevator, and far below was a huge cargo bay with many levels of platforms above it, all lit from below. In fact, there was no sunlight here at all, and she stared in disbelief at the huge room until they passed into a dark space. A moment later, the elevator stopped and slid open, revealing a crowded room filled with dozens of uniformed people darting to and fro. At the end of the room, on the far right, was a wide window with a long console below it. Beyond that was a surreal sight, roiling crimson clouds. Yantrick went over to a control panel on the far end and sat Asha down on a chair next to him. She's not supposed to be here, one of the officers barked. Someone get her out of here. If she goes, I go. Yantrick pulled out a silver medallion from one of his zippered pockets and flashed it at the man, who deflated slightly at seeing the small disc. Yes, sir. Just don't let her touch anything. Asha looked over to her left and noticed a row of smaller hexagonal windows placed along the wall. I should put all my stuff in Do Not Disturb mode, shouldn't I? Zing! A female voice echoed throughout the space. Priority alert to all stations. Liftoff sequence engaged. Asha felt a rumble beneath her feet, and the clouds outside washed by. Turn this into putting everything in Do Not Disturb. There we go. This is real, folks. Welcome to quote Spaceballs. Welcome to real life. She turned to her father, who was engrossed in what he was doing at the controls, along with dozens more officers, all immersed in different tasks. Dad, are we really leaving now? Forever? Her father remained silent, typing in commands as if his life depended on it. Ahead, Asha could see a few stars, but part of the view was obscured, as if a perfectly black, jagged shape were obstructing her view. She looked back to her father's screen and watched as the tower they'd been inside and the glittering city around it shrank into the distance. She would never again see the ruddy mountain ranges, sheer cliffs, and pristine streams that she grew up with, and a deep sadness swept over her. By now, her father had minimized the rear camera feed to a quarter of the screen. Most of the screen was taken up by navigational data and other symbols Asha didn't understand. Despite the camera feed being smaller, she could still see a few major features of the city. Once again, she tried to find the research tower they'd been in and quickly spotted it, admiring its elegant dome one last time before a piercing green beam of light shot down from the sky, slicing the tower in half. In what seemed like slow motion, one side crumbled apart, exposing dozens of rooms. Words left her as she beheld thick green beams of death crisscrossing her beloved city, setting entire districts aflame in mere seconds. Asha wept. Her father pulled himself away from the controls and took her hand. I'm sorry, Asha. I'm sorry this had to happen. She saw that her father was filled with despair too. Page 10. But why? She managed to say through the sobs. Why are they doing this? Don't they realize what they're doing? How can they be so heartless? Tears streamed down her face, and her father wiped them away with his sleeve. Ahead, she noticed they were approaching a colossal ring structure hanging in space. Asha, they don't have hearts. Another announcement rang around them. Please be advised, jump imminent. They don't have hearts? Asha watched as the void in space grew larger. The paths of light that were etched into the ring now glowed, appearing like a halo in the sky. And the starlight at the center of the ring twirled in a mad spin. Exactly. And that is why we will survive. And before another thought could enter her mind, the swirling maelstrom engulfed them, and all became darkness. Asha felt a chill sweep through her once more, and her eyes flashed open. Just ahead of her was a dying fire, and Asha shivered at the sight of the flickering embers. She pulled a blanket around her tighter and pushed herself up from the bare rock, noticing that Zhan was still asleep on a pad beside the fire. His mouth hung slightly open, and he'd kicked off half of his blanket in the night. She wondered what time it was and glanced over to Zhan's backpack where she'd stowed her comm. Ruffling through it would probably wake Zhan up, so she let the thought go, her gaze drifting up to the wealth of stars spread out above her. None of the constellations looked familiar, an ever-present reminder that she was on Avani, a world thousands of light years from home. The dream flashed back to her, and she considered how no other event had changed her life as much as that one day, long ago, when she was a child. She had lost her home, and it had forever shaped the woman she had become. But home could be rebuilt, not always literally, but the idea of home could once again find fertile ground in her heart. And while living on the outpost ring didn't stir her soul like the stunning cliffs and streams back on Tavisi, at least they had survived. That was what mattered. Still snugly wrapped in one of Zhan's travel blankets, Asha stood up and walked to the edge of the bare rock that formed most of the peak. Tiny pebbles littered the otherwise smooth stone, so she had to be careful not to slip on them. The wind kicked up, and she knelt down to keep her balance. Below, she could see the mountain drop down sharply and then level off, where a thick azure forest grew on a gentle slope until it became silvery beaches that met with. To her right, she could see the curved northern coast of the island, where the main city glowed with uncountable pinpricks of white light, like millions of fireflies. And to her left, she thought she could make out some lights from the other islands, although tonight was too hazy to be sure. In the sky above, she noticed that the colors began to brighten and glanced back to Zhan, reflecting on their journey to the center of the galaxy that had eventually led to their battle with the Vakraga. During their adventure, anything had seemed possible. The breathtaking majesty of the galaxy had been spread out before them. She had embraced her talent as a healer, and her life had been irrevocably changed. She admired Zhan's feathery blonde hair, now messy in his slumber, and recalled what he had said to her. When the planet shattered, I woke up in time space, and I thought I was dead. Do you know who I thought of first? I thought of you, Asha. In all of my life, I've never met anyone like you. His words had touched her, and although she didn't show it, she had felt drawn to him too. But then he asked her to stay on Avani, a decision that was more complex than he realized. She and her father had a responsibility after all. They couldn't just up and leave the outpost ring. The marauder creatures would run rampant, swarming the innocent inhabitants of the ring and literally tearing their ships apart. And because her father was the only one on the ring that had enough firepower to counter the marauders, they had a responsibility to keep it safe. Asha considered the previous night, when Zhan had brought her up here to the highest point of the archipelago. With great excitement, he'd pointed out a Shreya city and the lights from the distant islands. They got caught in each other's gaze and grew close. He had leaned in to kiss her, but she had pulled back. Her eyes studied the dying fire. She wished there was a way. Her heart longed for a way to honor both sides of herself. Bzz, 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 Asha gasped and ran over to Zhan's backpack, frantically searching for the source of the alarm. She ruffled through it, finally finding Zhan's wristcom next to hers and silencing it. She looked over to Zhan, and he let out a huge yawn. He sat up and sniffed. Good morning, Asha. Were you already awake? Yeah, she said, donning her silver wristcom. It adjusted, retracting for a snug yet comfortable fit. A dream woke me up. He rubbed his eyes. Why did you set an alarm? You didn't tell me. I didn't? Zhan blinked and looked around. Oh, I'm sorry. My dad wants to have a big breakfast this morning, so I thought we could start hiking down at sunrise. Is that okay? Asha squinted at him. But didn't your mom say she doesn't like you coming up here? That's really why you want to get down there earlier, isn't it? Zhan grumbled. Okay, yeah, she thinks the trails are a little hazardous, but it's nothing compared to what we've been through. And if we get down there before they wake up, she'll never have to know, right? He smirked at her. Right? She sighed. Fine. I don't want to cause trouble, but you should tell your parents where you're going. And you should tell me when you set an alarm. I did. I told my dad. Sorry about the alarm. Can I have my wristcom, please? We need to get moving. She handed it to him, and he looped it around his wrist. Together they compressed the sleeping pads, packed up, and made their way down the misty trail to the silvery beach far below. Asha noticed how the sky was growing warm with the hues of the morning. Following Zhan as he jogged down the narrow trail between boulders and beside sheer cliffs, it was easy to see that he had made this journey dozens of times before. Asha tried to enjoy the beauty of the morning light on the misty trail, but her thoughts kept returning to their impending conversation. She had told him that she would think about staying on Avani, but now she realized that there was only one responsible answer. Thinking about his reaction gave her an uncomfortable, tight feeling in her chest. When they reached the stone house, Zhan pressed his thumb to a pad beside the door and opened it, revealing a front room that was bathed in the gray-blue light of the morning, flickering in from the crystal ceiling above. Last page. And we're going to finish up. Asha and Zhan listened for activity, but there was none. Good, Zhan whispered. Everyone must still be asleep. Go ahead and make up a little bed on the couch, and I'll start soaking the collard green in the kitchen. Then when they wake up, everyone will assume you just slept in the front room, okay? All right. I'm still a little sleepy anyway. Okay, he smiled. Well, if you want to sleep a little bit longer, that's okay too. I don't know. I might read a little. All right, I'll be in the kitchen. They both removed their shoes and placed them by the others, and Zahn disappeared past the arching doorway, which led into the dining area. Asha's gaze returned to the front room, furnished with 2 large couches and a fireplace at the far end. As quietly as she could, she spread out a turtle-patterned blanket over the couch and lay down. Believe it or not, that is the correct. You say lay, not laid. I researched it way too much. The whole lay, lane, head lie, head lane is the worst. It's the worst part of English. I actually have gone out of my way to not use the word lay or lie because it almost every version of it sounds wrong to me. People misuse it all the time. She was about to look for Zahn's reading pad, but to her surprise, a wave of sleepiness came over her. She decided to rest her eyes for a moment, just a moment. When she opened her eyes again, she could hear a faint conversation in the kitchen. Asha stretched out onto the sofa like a large feline, curling her fingers and toes as she inhaled. Slowly she sat up and noticed a faint blue hue on her olive skin. Above her, bluish light poured in from the crystal ceiling, colored by the canopy of blue leaves above the house. Her gaze drifted down to the couch just across from her, covered in silvery rock turtle patterns woven into the fabric. She laughed to herself. The Avanians were so obvious in what they loved. She liked that about them, the honesty. Asha stood up, folded up the blanket, and took a deep breath. At last, she felt ready to answer Zahn's question. So that's chapter 1, A Halo in the Sky. And maybe I'll read. And perhaps I'll read chapter 2 next time. What I think I will do is in a couple weeks do a follow-up newsletter to you'll get an email, and we'll vote for another time, perhaps. I just want to feel things out for when works well for people. And I really appreciate you stopping by today. I appreciate questions, and I appreciate your support and questions in the chat. We made it through number 2. And nothing even caught on fire. So that's good. And so I am percolating about it. Another book is percolating in me. But I need to. I find that the ideas take hold of me, and I already have 3 or 4 main concepts, but I don't have critical mass in my head to start outlining it yet. It's the kind of thing where once it's getting close, but it's the kind of thing where once it grabs me, and then I'll just outline for a few months, just getting clarity on where I want things to go. I'm getting close to that, but I want to make sure I let it breathe. And I'm really excited because obviously with each book, I grow in my ability to articulate and tell these stories with greater depth, greater realism, greater being grounded in the five senses. I want to hit all of the bases. And I think that writing the nonfiction series is going to improve the fiction in maybe some unpredictable ways. Just like the nonfiction was definitely a better series due to the fact that I wrote 3 novels before I wrote any of the nonfiction, the True Hawaii series. So it's fun to bounce back and forth, to be honest. I don't really know. I find it interesting, authors that only want to do one or the other. But maybe I'm just really inspired by these islands in general, and I'll take that energy and translate it into anything that feels in the flow. But thanks for joining me today. I am percolating on things. I'm intending that I can. Honestly, I miss selling books directly to people. It's the tourism to these islands has obviously been knocked down 95%. The flights are just, for justified reasons, absolutely. But it's going to be an interesting, weird summer. And normally in this kind of situation, having lost the majority of my income and transitioning to more online work, and I'm lucky that I have gotten more. I do some remote design stuff too. I'm lucky that I've got some of that. But normally in this situation, I'd be like, well, shoot, great time to travel internationally cheaply, right? Kind of like what I was doing in this book. Like I came here with, I work traded. I didn't need that much money to explore. And I'd love to do that, but some of the places I want to, obviously not a great time to travel, really. So it's a funny, and I know I'm sure you're feeling this too, of like, well, I want to do these things. I can't do that. And well, what can I even do? It's so much of what we're doing now is in our homes, doing stuff online. It's such a funny current reality. I think it's going to improve. And I think if we hold that intention and we move forward with love, that we can change the world in small ways every day. So thanks for sharing this with me. Thanks for we're all mirrors to each other, and I really appreciate you being a mirror to me and my work. If I could put these through the internet, I would share these pumpkin seeds with you. I will not eat on the stream because I'm not going to be impolite. Yeah, so pretty much the project for this summer are these audiobooks. My goal is to finish the audiobook to this guy and really have a lot of fun with it. That's the goal for the summer right now. I haven't really done an audiobook like that before. Last time I had a professional narrator doing it. And I think for moving forward, I'm going to see if I can, and I'm going to be releasing, I should say this too, because I have way more experience in Logic and mic technique than I did 6 years ago when we did the audiobook of Truth Beyond the Sky, Jeff Hayes and I. And what I want to do is release the chapters of this to my Patreon early. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, I'm probably going to release it so I've got 3 levels. I've got $1 a month, $5 a month, and $10 a month. And there are people in this chat that are on all the levels, as far as I know right now. And I so appreciate your support. I think based on the amount of work that I'm going to be putting into this, I'm going to provide full, maybe not entirely completed, but definitely full first drafts of the chapters to my Patreon for $5 or more, and I'll put the Patreon link in the chat for this. I already have $5 patrons already get a bunch of stuff. They already get a huge backlog of. I just finished going through, because I finished going through and making sure that $5 patron supporters get all the backlog of behind the scenes photos from this book, and as well as getting actually early drafts of all three. I posted whole chapters every week for like 2 years before the book came out, so you can actually read the whole book on Patreon. It's kind of interesting to see, or the kind of the early, slightly less edited and a little more raw in some ways. And what else do you get? You get the Island on the the Loveliest Abyss in the Universe novella, and the gratitude of knowing that you're supporting an independent artist, which really, really means a lot to me. You also get at $5, you get after shows to the interview podcast. Like people get the after show with John Roderick, to that interview that came out this week. And I'm also doing, I'm releasing early interviews to there, as well as my spontaneous podcast, Holo Holo Time, which we did a 4-parter of in April. We finished a 4-parter, and I've got a new one coming out. So there's various, it kind of boils down to like podcasts about Hawaii, interviewing interesting people, and stories inspired by Hawaii. So just kind of a theme there. So thanks for joining me. And it's just looking at the goals and what's happening right now. I really think that making these, I think it's a good time to work on these audiobooks, considering that we're in such a funny, goofy time. I think getting as many of these into audio as possible is going to be a good thing. And it feels like that's what's opening up for me right now. So wish me luck. And I'm going to be sharing full chapters of that when it starts happening. I'll be sure to announce that on the mailing list, which you can sign up for. I've got well over 2,000 people on there now. Over 30% open rate, which is amazing. A lot of people, only 9% of their subscribers actually read anything they send out. So I'm really thankful for that. And every time's going to be different. I don't know if this is the good, a good time of day for you guys, or this is a preferable day of the week. It kind of feels like Friday, later's on Friday and later on Saturday tends to work well for people. But yeah, we had fun tonight. I'm going to keep doing this, and I might do it every other Friday. We'll kind of feel it out. I'm trying to be very sensitive and not send out too many emails. I sent out 4 in August, or no, August. What year is it? I sent out 4 in April, and I didn't lose that many people. I think I lost like 0.5%. Because the thing is, here's the funny thing. If you ever run a newsletter, every time you send something out, 10 people are going to unsubscribe no matter what. Because they're like, I don't remember this. Go practice the car. But that's just part of the reality of it. So you're trying to find this balance of you want to remind people that you're giving stuff away for free and that you exist, but you don't want to overdo it. And so much happened in the last 4 or 5 weeks, right? A lot of stuff happened. So I did these tiny updates. I don't know what you guys thought of these tiny updates where I would send out something really small. And what did you guys think of those? And it was timely. I really felt strongly that it was important, but I had to wait until last night to send out this new one because some of the giveaways I was in didn't start until today. And I was trying to find this happy medium, right? Of I don't want to send out 2 newsletters in 1 week. That burns people out. So next time, so I acknowledge that I wish I could have sent a reminder about this live stream a couple days in advance. I really felt like I already sent out a lot of newsletters in the last 3 weeks. So I'm experimenting basically to find a happy medium with that and not have people burn out. But next time I'm intending to give you guys some more notice. And also, honestly, the best way is just check Facebook. You can follow me. You don't have to friend me even. Check Facebook. Just Andrew Crusoe. I think I'm facebook.com/andrew.crusoe. Real easy. 99% of what I post is public because I don't trust Facebook to keep anything private. I don't. They're an advertising platform. I don't trust them to keep anything private. Sorry, Zuckerberg. Also, that guy's got weird vibes, in my opinion. But yeah, checking Facebook, checking the Twitter, if you use that, and checking Instagram. I post when that's going to happen. And even the Facebook stories, I tend to put that on there. And it's just a good way to see, just to kind of pop in and go, is something coming up? I tend to post on social media more than I post to my mailing list because you can filter on social media. Mailing list, I'm very respectful and try to give people a lot of breathing room. So anyway, I'll let you go. I'm gonna get some sun before the sun sets. It is 5:56 p.m. on the beautiful island of Hawaii, and or Hawaii. People argue about if the W is a V. Even like I've heard like locals say it different ways. Even the people like I am Hawaiian, they say it differently. I've heard it go both ways. So, it's interesting, but I'm just a white guy. I'm not allowed to talk about that. Because I'm new. And it's very important to me to be very respectful. Just be like, I am here by the grace of the volcano goddess allowing me to be here, which I talk about in here too. Hale Ma'u is where Pele lives. Whether or not Pele is literally real, if there ever was a life form that was not corporeal that existed, Pele would be one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if Pele was like a spirit that, did stuff. Getting very articulate. Can you tell that Andrew has low blood sugar at 6 p.m. right before dinner? Why am I doing these at my low blood sugar time of day? Oh, I know, because that's when the poll said to do it. I do this for you. I do this for the lols. I do this for my fans. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really excited at what's coming up. A little bit doing the audiobook for this is a bit outside my comfort zone. I want it to be excellent. I want it to be incredible. I want the characterization to come across. And I did do an audiobook for a short story a long time ago. And then I took it off of Audible. So I wasn't happy with it. It was like 15 minutes. It was the prequel to Truth Beyond the Sky, the short story. So this time, I think I'm ready. That was 7 years ago. So anyway, thanks again. I'm always open for, you're free to leave questions in the comments, things we can look at next time, questions you have for next time. One thing I would also like to do, something that I'm thinking about putting into my vortex, as they say, is doing a workshop on Zoom, helping people. I think I'm going to ask for people to already have something written, but to help people, it doesn't have to be long. It might just be what I would love to do. And I get people asking me about this regularly. I would love to help people take a story that they have, a short story, or even just an outline, and over the course of 2 or 3 days, get it on sale on Kindle. Like go from, you have this thing, and just encourage the heck out of you and inspire you to write this thing. Doesn't have to be long, but I really believe that everybody has a story in them. And just going through that process is going to spark so much creativity with you, because you're going to see that you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be afraid to write it, to edit it together. We'll probably have like a shared Google Doc, read each other's stuff. Maybe even we'll probably read it out loud if people are open to that. And I'll provide, depending on, yeah, that'll probably be part of the package. I'll provide editing too. And you can see the markups in Google Docs, and then, it'll be a short story, something you're passionate about. Like I said, you'll probably want to come in with an idea, because that takes a while, depending on your idea. But come in with an idea, come in with an outline, and then by the end of, depending on the structure, my initial idea was 3 days, but it might be a bit longer than that. And by the end of the workshop, to have something, it could be free, but to have something on the Kindle store. And potentially the Kindle one's kind of the easiest one to deal with. Amazon did do a good job with that. But Apple Books as well. Apple Books, you do not need to have a Mac anymore as of this week. You can get your work on Apple Books no matter what operating system you have. You can get it on there. That's really new, actually. They used to have a Mac and use iTunes Producer to get your book on there. Now you don't. So I think that'd be a really fun service to provide. They kind of be like a story coach, but also I know all the technical side of this, and I can recommend what software you can get. You could do this with Word. You could do this with OpenOffice if you want. I mean, Amazon Kindle accepts docs. It's not going to look as nice as if you were using Vellum. Vellum looks incredible. That's another program you can get. It's a little more expensive. But you can have a pretty decent, pretty good looking ebook, even throwing a doc up there with as long as you don't overdo the formatting. And then you've got something you can share with the world, and you can assign whatever price you want on it. And then you can, it's an idea I'm playing around with. It's something that I'd like to explore. I think that'd be a really fun, workshop to do. It's something that I would love to encourage people to help get their stories out there. And I've met people even on this island who want to do that. So that's something that I'm sort of intending for this year. That'd be I think a really good win-win situation. I think it'd be a lot of fun to help people get their stories out into the world, and honestly, and I would warn anybody who would want to join me with that. I would warn that's, well, okay, depending on your goals, right? If your goal is to just have it out there, that's your project. If your goal is to make some money, that's 50% of the work. The other 50% of the work is learning how to market it effectively. And that is I have a huge reservoir experience I can draw from for that. So thanks for joining me again. I'm going to let you go. You're absolutely welcome to leave questions and comments in the comments down below. Hit the bell, hit the check mark, hit the zombie symbol, hit all the symbols. If you enjoy this, hit the thumbs up. And this is just me being authentic and in the moment, sharing these books that I have put years of work into, and I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have received such incredible reviews. I still get 5-star reviews for these all the time, and it's been really fun seeing people's reaction to the box set. And like I said, the box set for this is coming out. The box set for the Sci-Fi trilogy is coming out June 11th, and pre-order is, I think it's 10 to 25% off depending on the store. Hey, someone else, aloha. We're wrapping up in a minute, but you're definitely welcome to watch the replay. It'll be up soon. I read some of this book. It was really great and fun. But yeah, we're doing a box set. It's coming out June 11th, and there's like I said, it has early concept art of the characters that a lot of those drawings haven't been released before. I wanted to give a special bonus for people who get the box set, a little extra bonus thing. And so that's that's what's going on, and going to start working on audiobooks for these. I've had a lot of people ask for audiobook. We're gonna wrap it up, but someone did just join. If you have a question, you can definitely throw it in the chat, and I'm happy to answer it briefly if you have a passing question. But if not, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna enjoy a bit of Hawaii light outside. We still have daylight here on Big Island, and it was a gorgeous day too. It was like, wow, everything was green. Aloha, Joshua. I appreciate you stopping by, showing support. Are you on the Crusoe mailing list? My mailing list. I'm gonna try to do. I'll probably do another vote for time slots that work for people. It's a good. I don't know if you're on the mailing list, but I think that's how a lot of people find out about this. Yeah, thanks, man. Oh, you know what I should? Actually, guys. Okay, when I'm done, when I hit the button, I'm gonna hit the button in 30 seconds. If those of you who have read 10,000 Hours in Paradise, and I don't know which books you are interested in, Joshua, I'd be interested to know. But those of you who have read the 10,000 Hours in Paradise series, or even just one or two, you may remember that I saw a octopus on one of my snorkeling adventures. Well, I went back to that same place, and for years I've been trying to manifest. I really want to swim with dolphins. And I was starting to feel like I was the last person on this island who had never swam with dolphins. That's not true, but I felt like it. And I was invited by a friend to go to Kona side and have this, and she's kind of newer to the island too, and have this adventure. And last week we went out and we saw dolphins jumping in the distance. This is good. This is a good final story for the video. And we're like, oh, we got to go out there. And the water was like 10 degrees warmer than where I had been snorkeling in this side. Hey, thanks, Joshua. Now I'm on. Yeah, if you ever have any time to leave an honest review, especially in Amazon, super appreciate it, dude. Super, 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 super. It really, really helps, especially the nonfiction. Since it hasn't been out as long. This book's been out for a year and a half, and the reviews have been great. But the sci-fi, that's some of those have like over 100 reviews, and they're pretty good. Like the first one's pretty good in terms of reviews, but the nonfiction, really appreciate if you're able to leave an honest review. 5 stars. So we went out, we saw these dolphins kind of jumping in the distance, and we realized that, cool. Oh, you're really close to the end of Truth Beyond the Sky. Right on. How did you stop 30 pages before the end? It's okay. It's okay. Oh, the end is really, wait, okay. So you're, okay. Wait. Yeah. Okay. You're like probably right in the middle of the, okay. Yeah. I get a lot of email. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I'm really glad you're enjoying it. So we see these dolphins though, and you're going to like the end of that too. Cause it flows right into this one, which was written in the middle of the jungle south of here on Big Island. This is the sequel to Truth Beyond the Sky, which Josh is just finishing up. The sequel is, and these are all available in all the formats too. The sequel is the only fictional book that has the Ahalanui warm prawns woven into the plot. And it picks up where the first one leaves off, but you could also start with this book. I wrote it in a very special way. And they have their own separate, Zhan and Asha both have different missions, but these missions end up like interacting with each other in a really fun, unexpected way. Island on the Edge of Forever is so much fun. And that's the audiobook I'm going to be working on. it's going to be a while before that comes out. I'm shooting for end of the year for that audiobook because I'm probably going to just be obsessive about it and edit the heck out of it and EQ it 1,000 times and be really picky about the compressor settings. So we go out to these dolphins, right? And we're going out, and we leave. We got in where a small reef was, so we leave this very well lit. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable in Logic, but maybe you could send me an email if you have a specific offer. You should, if you're into audio, you should listen to my interview show, Aravinda Show. Go to Mythly and click on Aravinda Spacecast. I just did an amazing interview with John Roderick that was so fun. So we went out, and as I'm, when you're snorkeling, you're usually looking down, right? So we leave the shallows of the reef, and it drops off. And I realized that not only is the water 85 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's so clear that I get this sense of dimensionality and proportion I don't usually get. And I realized that the bottom is now over 100 feet. And I actually get, this is embarrassing and silly, I actually get a fear of heights. And I'm like, that's stupid. I'm in the water, I'm fine. And I'm comfortable with my gear. And it just opens up. It was like a scene from Avatar. It was just this huge expansiveness. And I felt how small I was as this ridge, the shelf drops off into the deep. This dark blue. And it was, it's like the cellos were coming in at that point. And I keep heading, it's been northwest. And I see these shadows ahead of me and keep going. And these shadows resolve themselves into 3 dolphins. And then I keep going. I keep pressing out into the bay. And then there's another one. And then I look around and I suddenly see a group. I count 37 dolphins just swimming around. And I want to be respectful. I'm not a jerk. I'm not a crook. And I get and then I realize there 3 of them go right back, and I take out this thing. I need to get eventually I'm going to get a GoPro. I had this in a waterproof Joda bag, which it's fine. But I got some incredible footage of this spinner dolphin, 3 spinner dolphins going right behind me. And it was just incredible. These gorgeous, gorgeous creatures. And you see like this light patch of gray. They have this amazing coloration. And we were out there for over an hour, the first stint that we went out. We took a break and we went back out again. But the first time, and we calculated there were only 2 other people out there at the time. And by the way, you might be thinking, oh, pandemic. Well, swimming is allowed. You're not allowed to, let's say, loiter on the beach, but you are allowed to swim. As long as you can get access, it's okay. So we had this, my friend and I had this just magical experience, and I shot some video of this and edited it down to about 2 minutes. And that's in this channel. So if you like Hawaii or you like dolphins, when I'm done with this, feel free to click on my channel. And it's pretty easy to find. It's like it's really easy to find. You just go to the channel. It's like swimming with spinner dolphins. It's this big blue thumbnail. And yeah, I cut that together and I was really happy with how it turned out. It's just such a special experience. And yeah, feel free to share it. It's already gotten some traction on Facebook, which is, it's always nice. But such a special experience going out there. We came out and we took a breather and like, we got to go out again. We went out again and we were out there for another half an hour or so, just sharing the water with these incredible creatures. And we found out that they were actually sleeping. They sleep. Half of their brain turns off during the day. and they just kind of swim and go on autopilot. But one of them, and this is where I'll leave you, I turned to my left and I saw one jump out of the water and do a 360 jump in the air, spin in the air. And I was, there's these moments in your life where you're like, did that really just happen? You ever have those moments where you're like, I feel like I've seen this. And then you're like, oh, I did see this on National Geographic. You're like, wait a minute, this is real life. Welcome to real life. So you're like, this is amazing. This is real. You ever have those moments where you go, this seems a little cinematic. Is this a weird dream I'm having? Maybe I'm just a little bit cynical, but this island is helping me heal that. Yes. So super blessed to do that. And then afterward, my friend and I did like this hike down to the Captain Cook Monument, which is this very steep hike, and it was like 5 miles down, 5 miles up. So I was just so tired, but what an amazing day. And yeah, so you can look that up. That's a nice spinner dolphin video. Sharing the water with those was so magical. But I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for joining me today. I guess Friday evenings tend to work well for people. I'm gonna try to schedule this out further in advance. I think I mentioned this in my last mailing list, but I would love to have, I'd love to keep growing this and have a bunch of people on here concurrently. The numbers aren't bad, but I think we can do better. So if you know anybody who likes science fiction or who loves Hawaii, feel free to forward one of my newsletters to them, or forward them a link to one of the book funnel links. I'm still giving away. Giving away the ebook to this in Kindle and Universal formats in exchange for a sign up. And I'm also giving away the first in series for the Tropical Sci-Fi too, the prequel to this. And it's a good way to get started, but I just really appreciate you all being here. And if you read one of my books and you haven't left a review for that yet, always really, really helpful if you're able to leave just even a one sentence, especially the nonfiction ones. Trying to encourage people because those are newer, so they frankly need reviews more than the ones that have been out longer, just because time and life. But anyway, it was a pleasure and an honor to perform some of this to you today. If you missed that, you can just go back. I believe I read it about 90 minutes into this video, and really fun first chapter. Gives you kind of a feeling for what's coming. And like I said, there is a new trilogy percolating, something that I am intending. Authors always want to outdo themselves, but I want this to outdo everything I've done. And that's why I'm leaning into it gently, playing around with some core themes and values. And I think that I want to pick it up about maybe 5 or 10 years after this one, to a point where, and this is the third, the Tropical Sci-Fi trilogy, to where they're all well known at that point, and perhaps Asha has been living on the island chain for a while. Maybe she's moved from that post, maybe not. I haven't learned that yet. But I would like to deal with some much more complex, and like I said, exploring that idea of what is impermanent and what is eternal. how do we deal with impermanence in our lives is something that really comes to the forefront, especially living here on this island where there is a lot of transient population. Not anymore because they don't want to quarantine for 14 days. Am I right? So anyway, thanks for stopping by and sharing these 2 hours with me. Oh my goodness. I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your interest in my work. It means so much to me. And anything you like that I create, sharing it's always really appreciated. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, I have a lot of fun out there. It's @Hello Crusoe, Hello Crusoe. If you have halfway decent photos, I almost always follow people back. And it's another really fun way to connect. And I share previews of upcoming interviews on there. I just shared a preview with an interview I did with John Roderick. That's a really interesting, thoughtful preview that I did of, well, what he says is thoughtful and interesting. I don't know about me, but I feel like I'm going on now, so I'll let you go. But thanks again, and always open for I would love to hear what you think in the comments. Be sure to subscribe if you have not, and you get little notifications of when I do these. I'm thinking about doing these every other Friday. I would love to hear what time box works well for you. I also have an interview coming up. Can you believe it's already Friday? TJIF. It's like the 90s all over again. All right, guys. Have a good evening and be safe out there. And remember to stay crunchy, even in soy milk. That's what Joss Whedon always used to say. He would say, stay crunchy, even in milk. But I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't really say that. Stay crunchy, hemp milk. If you tried hemp milk, try hemp milk. Wherever you are. It's pretty good. It's got this great body to it. Try hemp milk. That's my recommendation. My name is Andrew Crusoe, and my recommendation is hemp milk and books. Aloha. And if you haven't, check out my mailing list. The link will be in the thing. You get 3 free ebooks when you sign up to my mailing list. I know most of you probably already on there, but I send it out about twice a month these days, and it's concise and I make it fun. My goal is to make it the best newsletter you get, the most interesting, concise, pretty newsletter. Aloha.